did today, but to give just a little bit of voice to the different types of writing that go on across campus, right? The fact that the skills that you are learning in your Language 20 classes are going to be skills that, that you are going to need to transfer into other classes. You've probably already seen that in some of your other classes this semester. But thinking about the ways in which we transfer what we're learning is really important. Because this is your one shot, right? This is your chance to have a class completely dedicated to writing at the college level. Okay, and now we'll just stare at all those people who are walking in late. If you did not already get a chance to, if you're in my Language 20 class, I have specific sign-in sheets. I also have some other sign-in sheets. If you're from another professor's class and you would like them emailed and notified that you are here, so make sure that you sign in there and indicate your professor's name. I'm going to let the panelists today, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And so we'll just, once everybody's found a seat, if that's possible, we'll just go ahead and get started, and I'll let each of them introduce themselves. Thank you so much.
I'm Ann Jansen. I teach in the English department. I also teach in the U.S. Ethnic Studies program and WGSS, Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies. And I'm going to talk to you today about the writing I do for my major field of concentration, which is literature. So personally I write for many reasons. I keep a journal, I write a lot of letters to friends and family because I think I'm trying to keep the post office alive. I send a lot of emails, I write some pretty bad poetry. I write letters of recommendation for students and post things on Facebook and Twitter and all that. But professionally, my writing tends to be for one of two purposes. I tend to either be writing for presentations that I'm going to deliver at conferences, and so delivering these presentations to other scholars in my field, or I tend to be writing articles and essays that I'm trying to get published. So again, similar audiences, but different purposes, right? And so, I mean, I'll tell you honestly, I used to think academic writing was really boring. When I first entered my undergraduate career, I was certain that I was going to major in math, not English, because I hated essays. And then I realized that I was my own problem. I was the reason my writing was boring. And I wasn't thinking of any kind of audience beyond my professor. And I guess I must have assumed that they didn't have personalities and didn't want to read interesting things. And so eventually I discovered some English courses where we read academic writing that was fun to read. And I realized that there's this growing trend in literary studies to make academic writing more accessible, to make it less dry, to make it sometimes more personal when that's appropriate, and to just make it more engaging to wider audiences. And that's when I realized that as much as I loved math, that I wanted to be an English major, because I loved all the other things about being an English major. I loved the reading, and I loved the thinking about things, and talking about the books and the ideas, and I just didn't think I liked writing about them until I realized that I had something to say, and I could say it in my voice. So I'll tell you two brief little anecdotes. One is when I write for when I write for conference presentations, I've tried more and more to put my own voice in there. And this has influenced my writing for publications too. So last month I went to a conference where I presented on monsters in indigenous literatures, and I wrote a humorous presentation. It was an academic presentation, but you were able to sign up to say, like, I'm going to present like a comedic academic presentation. And it was really hard and really terrifying, and for like the month leading up to the conference, I was like, why did I sign up for this? But it made me really think about audience and really think about, I knew my audience. There were going to be other scholars in my field, maybe not familiar with the same books, but people who were like lit geeks, right? And I knew that in order to make them laugh, I had to think about their interests. I had to think about what I might be able to assume was common knowledge. Most of them are academics, so I could make jokes about being in the university and what's monsters there and things like that, right? But I really had to think about how I crafted my argument so that I balanced the humor with my point, and still made a point, because you can't present to academics without a similar point, right? And I thought, oh, this will be a one-off thing. It's kind of weird, right? Kind of entertaining, humorous presentation. Who does that? But then I realized since then, I'm working on a book manuscript and academic writing, not my bad poetry. And I realized that having written that presentation to be delivered orally influenced how I approach my writing that's not intended for oral delivery. I realized that it helped me really think about how to get my personality in there, how to convey my sense of humor, maybe without just swearing every other word, which is how it looks in my living room with my friends, right? And how to really participate in those conversations in my field in a way that continues to really be representative of who I am and how I am as a scholar, but also while really understanding, like, this is for a particular audience, right? And so the other thing I'll say, and this is what I'll sort of leave you with, is that for my particular discipline, the way I think of writing is that it's a conversation. Whether I have that audience there in front of me and they're going to be real people sitting there like you are today, or whether they're people who may be sitting down at a desk silently in their office to read something I've written, they're real people, and that I am trying to listen to what other scholars have said, usually by reading. So I'm thinking of reading as listening now. And I'm trying to contribute to that conversation with my voice in a way that allows me to make an academic point and allows me to engage with the ideas and theories that are out there, but allows me to really maintain that sort of voice and individual style that helps me think of, you know, who I am. So yeah, that's writing in my discipline for me.
Awesome. I think, first of all, I'm Patrick Balls. I'm a professor of mathematics and direct the honors program here at UNCA. I think that I'm envious of Dr. Jansen because she got to go first. And she pretty much stole all my thunder, and totally intentionally. I mean, and I just get to say ditto. Ditto in a different discipline, really. But a lot of what she said, I love how she brought up examples of writing that we don't even think of writing because they become so everyday and commonplace, like Facebook and Twitter. I think it's a mistake to downplay the importance of these micro genres of writing that we do. And I love how she talked about voice and audience and conversations in her discipline, being a member of a certain discourse community, becoming a member of that community by entering into conversation with it through your writing. I wanted to talk about a lot of these things that Dr. Jansen just mentioned in the context of math. And focusing specifically, maybe we can just do a little bit of a rhetorical analysis of a genre of writing that everyone thinks about when they think of math, going back to high school geometry. What's everyone's favorite kind of writing or genre of writing in math? Proofs, yeah. High school geometry does more damage to mathematics than anything else in the country because the way in which proofs are taught is just horrible because people come to despise proofs because they're given this really, I think, a very incorrect notion of what a proof is. Let's just kind of figure out what a proof is together if we could. So what is a proof in terms of, what can we ask about a proof so that we can better understand it as a piece of writing? What would we want to know about it in order to understand what it is? I'm going to stand up so I can be more imposing and make that. For sake. What kinds of questions can we ask about a proof so we have a better idea of how to write one? What is it? Yeah, and what kinds of questions would help us get at what is it better? I'll give you, pardon?
Why do we need?
Why do we? Yeah. So what is the purpose of a proof? What is the purpose of a proof? It's a good question. What is the purpose of a proof? Do you think?
It's to show that it's not, it's the angles and all those things.
Okay. So angles, like if you've got an angle and you're trying to show something, like complementary or supplementary angles, whatever. So supplementary angles add up to 180 degrees, and you're trying to prove something about those angles. You're trying to do what? You're talking to someone, and what are you trying to do with that someone?
Make a point.
Make a point. Another way to say that is you're making an argument.
Statement.
A statement, you're trying to convince them. It's sort of a persuasive piece.
So you're trying to prove something?
Yeah, like you're trying to prove something. That's what it's called proof. You're trying to make your case in some way. An argument, there are lots of ways we can call this a persuasive piece of some kind. You're trying to convince someone, you're making an argument. Lots of different ways to describe what a proof is. I said just a moment ago, and this is something that Dr. Jensen brought up too, this idea of audience. We're writing to someone. To whom are you writing when you write a proof?
Teacher.
Okay, sometimes you're writing to the teacher. I always try to help, pardon? Yes.
Whoever grading your exam.
Whoever is grading your exam. So sometimes there's a very canned audience for your proof. I always try to help my students to see beyond that. To who beyond the teacher or the grader might you be writing for if you're writing a proof?
Peers?
Peers. Yeah, maybe other mathematicians, or at least math students, if you don't think of yourself as a mathematician yet. I'm always pushing my students to think of their writing as a gate into the mathematical community. When you learn how to write like a mathematician, you are a mathematician. When you're taking that on, that's part of your identity as a mathematician. It's learning to write like one. So you might be writing to your peers, your classmates perhaps, or if you're writing, as Dr. Jansen said, if you're writing something for a conference presentation. You're writing to folks outside your university and you're trying to convince them. But you're writing with some audience in mind. And when you have a certain purpose and you have a certain audience, okay, you're well on your way to understanding what might go into a proof. What else would you want to know about how to write a proof that would help you figure this genre out? We've got a purpose, we've got an audience. The questions might be asked. Do you think you're allowed to swear every other word, as Dr. Jansen said? You should, and I feel like it a lot of the time when I'm writing proofs, especially very frustrating, complicated ones. But there are certain conventions, there are certain styles, there are stylistic constraints that you have to follow. You can't just say everything in any way you want to in a proof, typically. I think what Dr. Jansen said was great. I think a lot of academic communities are opening up to the idea of more informal expression and more personal expression in their writing. And I'm longing for the day when mathematics follows that. As yet, that's not really the case, unfortunately. But there are certain conventions one must follow. Is anyone familiar with the voice, first person, second person, third person, that someone uses in mathematics? Does anyone have a guess as to what the typical voice is in mathematics and why it is? If you write a math textbook or a math paper or something like that. Yeah.
Third person, because it's trying to be objective.
Okay, third person is really common in a lot of, especially in a lot of the sciences, to kind of carry that mantle of objectivity around. Mathematics actually breaks from that. And I like the reason, at least the reason I suspect that it's done. In mathematics, we usually use the first person plural. Not the first person singular, but the first person plural. So we talk about, we will show such and such result, or we will prove such and such theorem. And one of the reasons I think that's done is because it really draws people in. We're not talking about a single isolated person working in the confines of their office. Like Dr. Jensen said, you might be writing to someone who's sitting alone in their office. It's not one person, it's a member of a community, and you're drawing people into your argument. So it's a rhetorical choice that's made in this genre to draw people in by saying, we are doing this together. We are working on this. I'm not proving this, but we are proving this. Follow along as I lead you through this process. So little conventions like that, little stylistic markers that sort of distinguish mathematical writing and help the novice writer of mathematics really sound like a mathematician as they start to get used to writing in this particular genre. One of the things I want to do with this is just not to make you better proof writers, because I know a very small percentage of you are likely to write many mathematical proofs. In fact, even those of you who are math majors will probably go on after college to do something other than become math professors and write proofs every day. So I know the genre of a proof is not specifically a really important one, but what I wanted to do was to highlight the point that you can really take an unfamiliar genre, no matter how far removed it is from your discipline, and with the skills that you are getting right now in Lang 120, and the skills you'll begin to develop as you get deeper into your major, you can take unfamiliar genres, unfamiliar kinds of writing, and approach them by asking certain questions about them. You can ask, what is the purpose of this piece of writing? What is the audience? To whom am I writing? You can ask what the conventions and stylistic constraints are. You can ask these questions and approach an even unfamiliar genre and do well at it with a little bit of practice. And so when I'm asking my students to write in my discipline, I'm not so much asking them to know from day one exactly what a proof is, but to be able to know to ask the questions to become a better proof writer. So as long as you are aware that there are these things called genres in various disciplines, as long as you're aware of the questions, the kinds of questions you can ask to better understand them, you will be a better writer no matter what field it is that you're writing in. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Melissa Mahoney. I'm an economics professor here at UNCA. I wanted to echo what Dr. Ball said, and I wish that I could just say ditto and leave it at that. For a variety of reasons. One is that I think my presentation echoes a lot of what's been said already. So even in that, you can see how we're all different disciplines, but so many of these themes are common across the disciplines, and the way that we're approaching writing and who we're writing for and why we're writing. The other reason I wanted to say ditto is that I actually prefer writing a lot more to public speaking. I feel much more comfortable in writing. It's my preferred style of communicating with my discipline and to others within my discipline. So the importance of writing is in that of itself, is my preferred way of communicating. So my presentation here might take a little bit different of a approach, and I wanted to ask the question, why do economists write? So thinking of that approach, so why do economists in the field of economics, why do we write? So I thought I would turn that question to you all before I start my presentation and ask you, so why do you think economists write?
To inform society about what's going on.
Wonderful, to inform society about what's going on. So to understand something about our world, right? To ask questions about our world. Anything else? What are some other ways that we might inform society? So besides just presenting a question or presenting some sort of understanding of that question, what else do economists do to help inform society? Trying to see if any of my students are out there. What about policy? Right, so a lot of economists work in policy, right? So to influence government policy, say for minimum wage or equal worth pay, things like that. Or I'm a microeconomist, so I look at individuals, but you might think of big macroeconomic questions about trade flows or GDP growth, things like that. How do we grow an economy? Right, so economists work, I would say, to one, to understand our world, and to ask questions about it, but also to influence policy, to make changes on the ground, to affect change. So in my work, I usually ask questions, or the long-standing question that I ask is about human well-being. So I ask questions about what is human well-being, how do we measure it, what kind of policies can we implement to sustain it, how can we grow human flourishing, how can we set policies that cause human beings to flourish in different ways. So these are the questions that I ask, the understanding about the world that I want to produce. So what are some of the common tools you might think of that are associated with economists? What do economists do? So we said that we ask questions about our world, trying to understand it, we're trying to affect policy. How do we do this? Some of the common things, your stereotypes about what economists are, what they do.
They survey?
They survey, okay, so they survey people, they're trying to get information, collect data. Okay, that's great. What are some of the other things?
They do a lot of research.
They do a lot of research. Okay, so what are some of the tools that they might use to do research? So we have one over here, surveying, so collecting data.
I mean, you could read, like, I know in our class that we had, like, not economic, but the scholarly articles and, like, stuff that is, like, found in everything like that.
So we'll do research. So we want to see what's out there, right? So we might do research. We're going to read research in our field associated with the questions that we're asking, right? So in that way, we're part of a conversation, right? So we're asking questions about our world. We're probably not the first people to ask those questions. So there's this element